your presentation reminded me one thing. The British demarcated ministerial Burma and the frontier area, or it is called excluded area, something. And then after after Myanmar became independent, they have to work together. That makes the things difficult. And then in Mandalay division, the Mogo, you know Mogo? It's the Ruby area. It's like and then if you look at the Mandalay division shape, it's like something like that. And then the British intentionally included a Mogo in the ministerial area. Actually, it should be, geographically, it should be included in the Shan state. But because they did, because there is a mining, ruby mining area. So since then, the mining resources matters, how to govern. Yeah. So your presentation makes sense, how to make sense of the resource conflict. So thank you very much. So the now floor is open. Yes?
Making a transition from a drug or opium-based cultivation to a more traditional crop-based cultivation, how difficult is it, and how farmers can be incentivized in making that transition, and how India can help in that transition? I would appreciate your thoughts on it.
Thank you. I found these presentations both very enlightening and very useful, especially Ms. Banerjee's, Dr. Banerjee's presentation on mining. And you mentioned that about the heartland theory, and but you are also saying that in the peripheral area also there is enough resource for them to use it as a bargaining chip. So how do you really reconcile that with your heartland theory then? And then of course the fact that the periphery is actually very inhospitable because of it being hilly, that is the other aspect. So how these things will be managed in the future, I think, and as the chair very rightly mentioned that in British times as well, they were very conscious of using that, putting that in ministerial Myanmar, the area where ruby is mined. But of course, more than that, I think the point that is worth noting is that the entire Irrawaddy Valley, because of it being so fertile and it being a source of revenue because of rice cultivation, it was an important area, and in that sense it fits into that heartland kind of a scheme of things. Thank you.
I have one question for each of the three speakers. Okay, first question goes to Dr. Cannon. Okay, in agricultural sector, lately we come to know that farmers are quite comfortable with their business, yet not very much improvement has been, let's say, visible. What do you think is the main thing that has been hindering them to improve as much as it should? My impression is, if they could introduce small-scale industry to add more value in what they produce, I think we could have more GDP from agriculture sector. But how could we do that? That's my first question, okay? And the second question goes to Ms. Banerjee, okay? We are talking about the resources, conflict, and things like that. In Myanmar, we have our newfound freedom, newfound democracy since 2011, okay? Since that time, people who are not thoroughly, let's say, in the know about what they are going to talk, they're making all the noises, activists, I mean to say. People in the countryside, they need some sort of a guidance. They need some education. Those people are easily misled by some activists who try to copy what the Western people have been doing, who try to, let's say, make advantage of the newfound freedom. At least to me, if those people are a little bit more rational, a little bit more understanding, Myanmar can go much more farther than right now. What has been retarding the development in Myanmar is because of the activists taking advantage of the newfound freedom. And to that opinion, I want to seek your view, okay? And to Ms. Nanda, I have one question, okay? The question is, the government has been trying to delegate power to sub-regional levels and all these things. But my worry is, capacity is not there yet to handle those things. Sometimes responsibility without capacity to do it properly can be very, very dangerous. Do you see that sort of a possibility in Myanmar's today's situation? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yes. Okay. So,
thank you, Professor Kuro, an inspiring speaker. My question is, Myanmar is very well known for its abundant natural resources, but how would you relate the natural resources with the political theory of the resource curse, especially the British economist, the Paul Collier? He wrote a very famous book on the bottom billion. He mentioned 5 points for the country with the natural resources in relation to the mismanagement, bad governance, bad neighbors. I would like to know your opinion on Myanmar as a nation with the abundant natural resources and the political theory of the resource curse. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the responses from one by one.
Thank you. I think I'll answer 2 questions. I'll start with his question first. I think it's quite possible to shift the substantial level of labor force from agriculture to non-agriculture sector, particularly when the Myanmar economic development is a nascent stage. I think is at early stages of development. It's quite possible. Your question itself had an answer that it's important to set up agro-based industries because the skill is not very high. You cannot shift. You cannot take the rural level force and put in IT sector. Right? It's not possible. But you have to employ them in the sector where they are comfortable and their skill can be utilized. I think the agro-based industry is one such thing which can be done easily. Your vegetables, fruits, and pulses and paddy. I think that's where the one strategy could be possible. Over a period of time, how we can shift the labor force, which in turn leads to achieving higher level of productivity in agriculture sector. This has been the development strategy elsewhere, but in India it did not happen like that. But I think advantage is that the Myanmar is just starting, just began in the last 5 years. This could be one of the strategies for doing that one. That's what I think at this stage. The value addition is very important, not the export of raw material as such, but what value can added, which can bring generate gainful employment. That's one thing I think. I think regarding his question on poppy cultivation, I think it's more of policy. It's difficult for me to answer. It's a state policy, regulations through various measures. That could be the possible solutions. Moreover, as you said, I think her presentation also showed, these are mainly on the border areas, right, and infected with insurgents and so on, and how it's going to be implemented is also going to be a big challenge. I think it's more of policy strategies one has to think of, how to bring the area under these crops to some other food crops or fruits and vegetables and so on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will answer the question raised by Xiao Somye. Yes, I agree with you actually. And in my PowerPoint, I mentioned that the lack of the capacity and human resources in subnational government. Myanmar practices a bottom-up approach in government budgeting. However, it is dangerous actually if we cannot control and manage properly to the subnational level, because we are still in the infancy actually. And I learned that bad decentralization is actually worse than bad centralization. So, most importantly, for the ethnic groups, what they want is to have an election, their own election in each and every state and region. So they like to have the elected chief ministers rather than president-appointed chief ministers, because as you will know that most of the chief ministers are former commanders. So, from the ethnic group perspective, it is important to have the chief minister based on the election. So this can be, in my point of view, this can be the first step that the government can actually perform for the win-win situation between the central government and the states and region governments. One thing for sure is that states and regions will not be leaving this union, so they will never be a part of the union, but they still need somewhat space that they see as the benefit. So, this is just my thoughts that I would like to share with you.
First of all, I am not yet a doctorate. I am just Shuparna Banerjee. And sir, to your question, so you said newfound freedom. So newfound freedom means maybe the outside world is getting an opportunity to know what is going on within Myanmar. But sir, does that mean that the conflict is also new? The conflict has been going on for the last 60 years. So, and rational, so you said also, had these peripheral groups been rational? Sir, how do you define rational? Maybe if I am part of the government, I'll be defining rationality in a way in which the rebel groups won't find acceptable too. So there's a difference between how we define these groups, these definitions, especially in a postmodern world. So I think that's what. And sir, to your question, yes sir, I agree. So that is why maybe I said that had the theory been completely acceptable in this kind of a situation, then things would have been different, and the majority ethnic group would have been in a position to dictate their terms. But just because the resources are also in the peripheral areas is what is providing these rebel groups a kind of a bargaining chip. And that is why maybe till date no balkanization has taken place, despite so much dissatisfaction, and despite each of these rebel groups having their private militias, which run from some 500 members to 10,000 members. So despite all these, taking all these points into account, no balkanization has taken place. So resources are actually kind of positive in this sense, that the rebel groups are finding it more attractive or lucrative to be within this territory. So maybe they are also interested in some kind of revenue sharing as well. It's not only about patriotism. They are also interested in some kind of revenue sharing with the government. That is why they are still attached to this union. Otherwise, maybe they would have also wanted some sort of cessation from the union. So that's what. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your responses. Regarding the Ukimanso's resource cost, I think Myanmar's most important resource is human resources. So if you any industries, any activities that can utilize the human resources as input will not cause any curses. Resource curses, as long as you are human resources. I think this will be the answer to your question. Thank you very much for the three very interesting presentations, and please have a hand for them.